Hi, I'm Lisa, the Executive Director at Sav-A-Life. You know, God is writing many beautiful stories here every day. Stories that start with fear, but are met with His hope. Raven's story is one of the many He entrusted to us this year, and we'd love to share it with you now.
So when Nicole came initially for her first appointment for a pregnancy test, she was abortion-minded. She was not excited about who was the father of the pregnancy. As we talked about it more though, she kept saying, I don't think I could do that, especially the abortion procedures. That's really impacted her.
She's a mother already, and we could see she's a great mother. They're very well behaved, and she is very particular about her children and making sure they're dressed nicely. I think that made it hard for her to think about ending this pregnancy.
So we ended that appointment with an ultrasound where she was about 6.5 weeks, and she was still saying, I don't think I could do it. But we encouraged her to come back the next week for another ultrasound. Well, it was a good positive experience and that she was on the path to parent this child. About 4 weeks later, she called me out of the blue and she said, Miss Beth, I've got to have an abortion. Where do I go? What do I do? I said, listen, come back in. Let's talk some more about your options and where you go from here.
And so that's when you brought her into the ultrasound room where I was. I put the probe on, and as soon as I did, it was as if that baby was performing. Like she was moving around and doing flips, and like she was just a perfect model of a baby. And
when she came and sat over in the chair, and she was shaking, she's just kind of sitting there shaking, and she looked up at me and she said, it moved.
This is the moment she realized it's more than a heartbeat. This was a life. As she was saying, I still just don't know that I can have another, a third baby with a different, father. I remember that's when you saw your opportunity to mention, there is another option that we have here. And she was like, what do you mean? We could talk about adoption. Have you ever thought about adoption? And
she went pretty far down that path. I think went to the point where even it was the time to maybe even pick parents. And that's where it really struck her. She started to realize when she was talking to other parents and asking them questions about how they would parent this daughter, it hit her, why am I doing this? I love this child. I care about this child. So she had called me when she had gone through the whole process of adoption and decided to instead parent, and had said at some point she was ready to do some education, needed some help. She said, I'm gonna need some diapers and wipes for this baby. I said, you are. So we got her hooked up with a mentor, connected her with someone who could do one-on-one education.
And I remember her coming in after the baby had been born, and she was in a carrier with a blanket over her. And I said, well, are you gonna let us see this baby? And she pulled the blanket back, and just a beautiful baby. And she told me, she said, she is such a good baby, and I cannot imagine my life without her. One of the things that it changed for me, getting to know her and seeing her whole story, was just realizing that when they are meeting with us and we feel like we have connected and that they have said, I think I'm gonna parent, if we feel they're leaning in that direction, they're still very vulnerable, because sitting with us and hearing all the things we're going to help them do, they make a choice, they want to keep their baby, but when they leave our doors, they go back to reality and they go back to their real life, and their circumstances are hard. And I can see why this is a choice they think the only choice they can make. And when they get back to their real life and their real world, they're still very vulnerable.
God had us in the right spot at the right time to talk to this one client who changed both of us forever.
I'll never forget her.
Sav-A-Life has been part of my journey since my very first pregnancy, and I'm forever grateful for the love and support they've shown to me and my children. The staff is amazing, and I've built close relationships with them. I really appreciate that it's a judgment-free zone where they truly care about you and are willing to help in any way they can. Most importantly, I love that they pray with you and help you get closer to God.